Okay, so this is the tier list maker with the Hulu Disney Plus ads on the side. Um, so I set it all up, and I'm gonna go. I gotta bounce like back and forth between my computer and the camera as I move things up. But before I go before I go on, let me explain. So I have three tiers, and the reason why I only have three tiers is because I feel like a lot of people are making like two mid tiers. Like there's an B, C, and then D tier. I feel like mid tier is redundant. Having two mid tiers is redundant because characters have good and bad matches. So someone who would be in B tier has a bad matchup with someone who is in C tier, but so it ends up being kind of like arbitrary and silly. Like, okay, like, Kotal Khan beats fucking Sonya, right? Whatever, just for an example. Kotal Khan beats Sonya, but Sonya is B tier and Kotal Khan is C tier. Like, there's a lot of debate, discussion, and argument among the mid tier, and I feel like it ends up being kind of redundant, right? And irrelevant. Like, at the end of the day, there's really only three tiers in like this game. It's to me that's like it's a sign of how balanced MK11 is that there's really only three tiers, and that you could win a tournament with any character. So I want to make it very clear that, like, even if someone is in bottom tier, I believe that you could win with that character. You could go fucking start of a tournament, go all the way to the top and win that tournament with bottom tier characters. And the reasoning why I place them in the three tiers that I have them in is, it'll make sense, all right? Let me visit with Robo Smoke real quick. So the three tiers are top tier, mid tier, and bottom tier. And the reason why I have them like this: top tier are characters that, like, I chose them for two reasons. Theoretically, they could win a tournament. On paper, you look at their moveset, you look at what they bring to the table, they could win a tournament. Easy. The second criteria for top tier is, do they win tournaments? Do they actually, not just theoretically, but do they actually win tournaments? And do they do it consistently and across multiple players, right? So you look at a character, it's like, okay, yeah, somebody like Averk just got to second place at Prince Panther's tournament with Scorpion. But he is the only guy doing that, to the best of my knowledge, right? Maybe there's some other Scorpion players that are placing well, but they're all online tournaments. I'm mostly looking at offline. So offline, not many people are placing high with Scorpion. When a Scorpion places high, it's like one dude, and it's not always that same dude, right? But you look at like a character like Jackie, multiple people have placed at least top 8 with that character multiple times. It's not one Jackie player, it's quite a few. And those few are getting high placings consistently. And the reason why I look at it like that is it takes away player skill, right? We're just looking at the character. If only one guy can make that character work, maybe that guy is just some like unknown rando fucking Mortal Kombat genius. Like, he is just this unstoppable, like, it's like Sonic Fox winning a tournament with fucking Collector, right? Like, you're not winning a tournament with Collector. You're not Sonic Fox. Sonic Fox can do things you can't do. But when you look at a character like Jackie, it's like, dude, there are several Jackies, and they're constantly making top 8s, and it's the same people. Like, it's not like this guy made top 8 with Jackie and then you never see them again. It's like, this guy made top 8. They did it at the next tournament with the same character, and then the next tournament with the same character, and it's removing the argument there. Okay, so then the second tier would be mid tier, and these are basically characters that are very, very good You can pick them. You could win. But they will have bad matchups, and you have to come up with a plan for those bad matchups. So top tier, I can pick this character and this character alone, and I can go all the way through the bracket and win, no problem. And I know this because many people have done that before. Mid tier is I can pick this character, I can use this character alone, and I can probably get far in the bracket, but I'm going to have some issues with bad matchups. And if I face one of those bad matchups, there's a high likelihood that I could lose because of that bad matchup. And that could be a bad matchup that I'll face rather frequently, right? So like Kotal Khan, really, really good character. Could probably win a tournament with that character. But Kotal Khan's going to have a problem with Cetrion. And Kotal Khan doesn't really have an answer for Cetrion. And you're probably going to have to fight a Cetrion in the brackets. Like, even if there are no other Cetrions other than Dragon. Uh-oh. We are getting a raid from Asuna. Thank you, Asuna. Thank you for the raid. But, so, like, if you're playing Kotal Khan and you end up fighting one Cetrion the whole tournament, that one Cetrion could be the Cetrion that takes you out of the brackets because that's your worst matchup, and it's almost guaranteed. So a lot of the characters that I place in mid-tier are at mid-tier because they struggle against the top tiers. So the top tiers, you could carry that character can carry you to grand finals. But mid-tiers, you're going to have bad matchups, and some of your bad matchups may be those top tiers. So you may want to pocket another character, either like a counter pick for a top tier or pocket one of the top tiers just in case. That way you can get by on skill more than matchup problems or character problems. And then bottom tier are characters that, in my opinion, if you are bringing that character to tournament, you are not really playing that character to win. You're just kind of like a character loyalist. They are characters that have glaring holes in their game plan that will make it hard to win. And you will struggle. And it's not impossible to place high, and it's not impossible to win, but you will have more bad matchups than not. And for the most part, the characters that I place at bottom tier, it's not necessarily that they have bad matchups. It's that they have problems mechanically that keep them from really excelling, right? It's not necessarily like, oh, this character has like, fucking 20 bad matchups out of a roster of 30. It's more of like the mechanics of the game kind of screw this character. And there aren't very many characters in my bottom tier. And when I place them, you'll see why. So anyways, I'm going to post my top 5 or top tier, and then we'll discuss that character by character, and then I'll post the bottom tier. And we'll discuss that character by character, and then I will post the mid-tier, and you guys are probably going to shit on me for that, right? So let's go, right? So first of all, top tier, we have that, okay? I mean, it's not going to surprise anyone. Like, nobody should be shocked right now. Everybody should kind of already be in agreement as to there, right? I'm also going to place that, and I'm also going to place that. And I'm also going to place that. As far as organizing it, okay, that would be the order that I have the top tier. So let me explain. Before you guys get mad. But there shouldn't be any surprises. The only surprise should be Raiden, right? Jackie is broken. She breaks the game. She ignores mechanics. Up threes don't matter to her. If you pick upgraded, you're probably going to be doing shrapnels on wake-ups, in which case you negate all wake-up options. Which is actually kind of cool because the wake-up in this game is pretty fucking stupid. But the fact that Jackie doesn't have to deal with that on top of her just being Jackie, is a pretty big deal. She is hands down like the best character in the game. She covers more bad matchups and bad options. Like being able to ignore the entire wake up system is something that no other character can do. So even if Jackie has a bad matchup, if she knocks you down, she doesn't have to worry about a lot of your wake up options unless she's fighting specific characters that shrapnel doesn't beat their wake up attacks or their wake up options. But even then, she still blows up all the rolls. She still blows up delay. So she still has options for dealing with everything. She just can't blow up Noob Saibot's up 3, at least not to what I've found. And this is on top of Jackie being upgraded Jackie. So without actually breaking the mechanics, Jackie is still like the best character in the game. She's still upgraded Jackie. She still puts you in an 8-way guessing game. Jackie is also the only character in the game that you can screw up and it's not a problem. So like when she does super leap into shrapnel, if she mistimes it, maybe she shrapnels on a cross up, or she shrapnels a little earlier, or she shrapnels a little later. If you made the read of like instant jump shrapnel and you go to anti-air, like, you know, with the timing that works for that, and she's a little bit off in her execution, your anti-air whiffs and she gets a full combo. Like any other character in the game, I have to respect wake-up options, and if I fuck up my execution, chances are I can get punished for it. Jackie does, like, hardly, like, if you screw up, it's always one of those eureka moments of, like, oh, hey, look, I did shrapnel a little bit early, but, like, they were trying to anti-air a late one, so fuck it, I get fucking combo, right? She also gets 40% unbreakable damage. Like, by the time she launches you in her combos, you're already at, like, 380, 375. Like it's like, why even break at that point? So like she completely ignores all of the defensive meter options because she doesn't have to worry about wake ups and she can do ridiculous unbreakable damage. And this is off of like 8-way mix-ups, and this is off of the fact that even if she screws up her setups, she still gets her damage, right? Like she still could just ignore everything and do whatever she wants. And the only problem that Jackie ever faces in tournament is like when she has to fight the other characters in this tier, they kind of give her problems. There are other characters like Jade and Noob Saibot that give Jackie problems, but those matches are not really unwinnable, right? Like Jackie's never like Jackie just kind of destroys a character like, say, Jax, who doesn't have very good zoning, doesn't have very good spacing. He has decent-ish anti-airs, but, like, Jax is going to struggle with Jackie in the same way that most characters will struggle with Jackie. So, like, you know, she, like, her bad matchups aren't really that bad, and her good matchups are ridiculously good. Like, Jackie struggles with Jade in a way that, like, Jackie can still reliably win. Whereas, like, other characters struggle with Jackie. Like, Shang Tsung struggles with Jackie, like, so hard. Like, if his zoning is not on point, like, he's just going to lose. And even if you have a world-class zoner, like we saw at Final Combat, we saw Foxy Grandpa, world-class player, probably one of the best Warlock Shangs in the world, and, like, Jackie just fucking walks all over him. Aaron Black, Jackie just walks all over Aaron Black. Like, you've lost at character selection if, like, you're Aaron Black and you're fighting a Jackie. Like the results in tournament have shown. There's no dispute. Like, the best Aaron Black that's placed the highest in tournaments looked like a fucking beginner when he fought a Jackie. And, like, so that's Jackie, right? Next is Cetrion. Like, Cetrion has the same issue or the same, you know, reasoning as Jackie. She doesn't really have any bad matchups, and even if it is a bad matchup, like, she's got like universal mechanics that are just, or not universal mechanics, but she's got tools to be able to deal with them. Like, if somebody is rushing you down really, really hard, she has a variation with a teleport. If somebody is outspacing you very, very well, like, you can sit there and play the mid-range, and she has like the best buttons for mid-range. Like, she doesn't really, like, there's no losing situation with this character. And one of the things that's important in tournament is, again, like I mentioned before, like the mental stack and thinking as little as possible and draining your mental energy as little as possible. And Cetrion has standing 1, which is basically an option select because it covers 2 options with 1 move. So she can think less. She can spam this move and it will carry her very far in a match. And then if you figure out a way to deal with that move, okay, fine. But she doesn't have to think about her whole command list and look at a specific situation and say, oh, I am in this situation. These are the moves I want to use. Cetrion just does standing 1-1. If you're in the mid-range, standing 1-1. It covers lots of horizontal space. You can't really whiff punish it. She can lead it into or link it or chain it into combos for damage. She can do it and just be safe on block. If you try to jump, like say you make the read of she's covering horizontal space, I'm going to go vertical, jump over it, like say Noob Saibot's forward 2-2, right? Usually you counter that by jumping. Well, like Cetrion standing 1 is also her best anti-air, and it leads to full combo. So in the mid-range, she just mashes 1-1, just standing 1, 1-1, and like very few characters can contest that. And if she goes into variation 3, she could be even more obnoxious because she has the tornado or the fucking whirlwind. She can just go 1-1 whirlwind, 1-1 whirlwind. It jails, it's safe on block, it pushes you back to the point where most characters are basically back at neutral having to deal with 1-1 all over again. And she could just do that the whole match. And unless you take a lot of risky jumps, at best, you're going to be countering that strategy with down 4s. Which, okay, if she lands a hit, she gets 1-1 into whatever the fuck, right? And if you win that exchange and you made the right read, you got a down 4 at best until you start taking a bunch of risks. And Cetrion doesn't really have to take risks. Like, eating a down 4 isn't really a risk, right? She could do that, and as long as she hits you with 1-1, confirmed for full combo, as long as she hits one of those, like, she's going to outdamage your down 4 spam. And that's just on top of her having other options. You can do forward 2, 3, or whatever. She has other options to cover it if you're just going to commit to mashing out down 4s. She could jump herself and counter your down 4 with a jump. So, like, the fact that Cetrion can be kind of brain dead at high level and not really have to think about her command list, like she has one move that just covers so many options. So, like, I put her in top tier because you could play this character all the way through a bracket, offline bracket. You could play her all the way through a tournament, and you're not going to exhaust yourself. You're not going to think yourself into a hole. You can kind of relaxedly play each matchup and just mash out 1-1 and like wait for a conversion, wait for, an anti-air combo or something. And like you take no risk. So you're just passively playing in a relaxed state, whereas your opponent is constantly struggling with, how do I deal with this button? So again, people have taken Cetrion, like different players. I know Dragon's famous for it, but other players have taken Cetrion to top 8 situations in offline tournament. So you could say, okay, well, Dragon is just a prodigy with Cetrion, but like Dragon's not the only one that's done well with Cetrion. And that's one of the criteria that I have for a character being top tier is it's like, okay, did one guy do it and that guy is just a genius, or can other people do it? Then it's less of an issue of that guy being a genius and more of this character is strong, right? That brings us to number 3. This is the one that's kind of on a controversial end because offlines died before this character could really be explored in tournament. But the reason why I place this character here is because somebody at the last offline tournament, somebody won it with Joker. But B, even in the era of offline or online tournaments, right, with the quarantine and the lockdown, people are still doing good with Joker. When the character came out, people considered him very, very strong, but we didn't have a whole lot of tournaments like at that time for people to explore him and take him to the limit. When we finally had a tournament, he had been out for like a month or two. It was Final Combat. Sonic Fox wins with Joker, and then after that, we have the quarantine. There are no more tournaments, but online, people are still doing well with Joker. So that's why I put him in the top tier, is because like he doesn't really fit the criteria I have of consistent high placing from multiple people in an offline tournament, But he fits the first criteria of, on paper, this character looks stupid, right? On paper, theoretically, this character has some stupid-ass tools that just blow up everybody. So the second criteria is like with an asterisk, because we've seen that it is possible you could take him to the top of a bracket offline. We haven't seen multiple people do it consistently, but in the online sphere, he has been consistent. Even though I don't weigh online tournaments as much as offline tournaments, I am going to weigh them here because it's A, all we've got, and B, someone was able to do it offline before the quarantine. So it's not like Joker has only been winning online tournaments. He won A offline. He won one, and it was one guy, one time, but it was doable, and he's been consistently placing after that. And theoretically, on paper, he looks very, very strong. So he fits the criteria. Now we're getting into muddier waters, right? So here's where the waters get a little bit muddier. We have Liu Kang, Johnny Cage, Garrus, and Cassie. And the reason why I have them still in top tier is because they have been nerfed and they have been toned down, but not to the extent where their game plan has changed. It's not like they nerfed something about them to where like you literally cannot play them the same anymore as has happened in previous games. Like if you looked at MKX, when they nerfed Tanya, like she didn't have, like you could not play her with like the fireball cancel shenanigans and the fucking obnoxious teleport zoning. Like you had to adjust your strategy and play an entirely different part of your moveset in order to make that character work. Whereas like Liu Kang, like he lost the plus frames on 1-2, but he's still 0 on block, so you can still use it as a stagger. It's just not an oppressive stagger. You know, like Johnny Cage, he lost the plus frames off 1-2-4 and what's the other one? Oh, the high force balls, which were in a variation that people didn't even really play that much anyways, right? But like he lost like the oppressive, but he's still plus, right? So you do 1-2-4, you're still plus. Like you don't get a guaranteed down 4 check, but you still have enough frame advantage over your opponent to be able to choose your next move first. And you can go for a shimmy or a jump in or whatever. So he still plays the same way. And so their tools are still good. They're just not like stupid good. And people have been consistent with them. So like you look at a tournament, and especially like the last 6 months of the game's offline tournament span, right? Liu Kang and Johnny Cage were pretty much guaranteed to be seen at top 8. Like if it was an offline tournament from the last 6 months of the offline tournament scene, like you'd be stupid to bet that a Liu Kang or a Johnny wouldn't be there. And I feel that a Liu Kang and a Johnny could still do that. And it was multiple people doing it, and they were doing it rather regularly. And in the era of offline tournaments, people are still doing well with Johnny and Liu. So even though we're not even having offline tournaments, we're only having online, like these characters are still placing high online, and they placed high offline, and it was multiple people. And on paper, their tools look good. Like Liu Kang has a 9-frame mid, you know, like Johnny Cage can explode in damage out of nowhere. Excuse me, and keep it unbreakable without having, like, Johnny Cage has 2 fatal blows in every variation, right? Because he can sit there and land a hit, cancel into fatal blow, and then combo you from there, and all of it's unbreakable, and so that's basically 2 fatal blows without ever having to use his fatal blow. Like, they still have the tools. Johnny Cage still has down 1 into Rising Star to steal turns and stop you from mashing, forcing you to respect him. He still has really, really good force ball zoning. Like it's 2 frames slower. Like that's not even perceivable by the human eye how fast the force balls were compared to how fast they are now. So like he can still do the zoning he did before. It's just like he can't. It's, as opposed to getting 5 force balls out before you got inside, it's more like 3. But like he still is able to zone you for that. Same thing with Liu Kang. Like they're still fundamentally the same character they were when they were dominating in offline tournaments, and they're dominating now in online tournaments. And on paper, their shit is good, right? Next we have Garrus. You know, and a lot of people are kind of putting him outside of the top 5. Like pretty, like the consensus around the community is that he's top 6. Like he is character number 6, and I agree with that. He has been nerfed out of being, you know, like the best character in the game, but like Sand Trap is still stupid. Like it's still a stupid move until like Garrus will be a top tier tournament pick until they do something about Sand Trap. And the only reason why he's not still like top tier is because like you look at the characters above him, they all kind of counter Sand Trap. Like Liu Kang can whiff flying kicks and like punish Sand Trap with flying kick from full screen. Johnny Cage is like one of the few characters that kind of has to respect it, but like even then, if you do Sand Trap in the neutral, Johnny Cage can shadow kick. Like those characters have options against Sand Trap. Like Jackie does not play the neutral. Like she just jumps in, and like Sand Trap is meaningless, right? When upgraded Jackie just leaps because Garrus is gonna spam Sand Traps to like keep you out, right? And then Jackie's just gonna leap over that, and now Garrus has to deal with Jackie. And yeah, Garrus has the tools to deal with Jackie, but do note Garrus is one of those characters whose Jackie's shrapnel beats. Right? So Garrus gets knocked down. He tries to up 3 to stop her pressure. And Jackie just shrapnels, blows up the up 3, and now gets guaranteed damage. So like Garrus isn't top 5 because he has problems with the top 5, but he is a problem for everybody else on the roster. Like everybody else is having problems with Garrus still to this day. It's because Sand Trap just deletes neutral. Cassie, same thing. Like she hasn't really fundamentally changed. She's just not as cheap as she was. Like she like can still do up kick and keep it safe by meter burning it. If somebody flawless blocks it, like she's kind of screwed. But like she still has like the best neutral in the game. And she has still one of the best projectiles in the game. So like, yeah, like she still has all the same tools and she still gets the results. So even though she's nerfed, even though she's weaker, even though she's not as cheap as the characters above her, fundamentally she's still solid and people are still getting results. Like you're still, the last 6 months of the competitive scene offline, she was consistently in top 8 and it was multiple people doing it. Now in the online era, like she still gets a top 8 here and there, and it's still multiple people doing it. So like, I can't say that she's not one of the better characters in the game. When I try and make a tier list and I say like, this is the tier here, and this is this tier, and this is this tier, top tier is always, in my opinion, and has been traditionally, I don't know, people started coming up with weird criteria for top tier, but traditionally top tier was if you want to win a tournament and you want to have the highest likelihood of winning that tournament, these are the characters you're going to pick. And Cassie, like if you want to win a tournament, historically, people have done well with her. On paper, she's got the tools to get it done. There's no real glaring holes. She doesn't struggle with the characters above her as much as other characters, and she is very, very good against some of the characters below her. So I would say, even though Cassie mains don't want to agree, until we go like several top 8s offline in a row where we don't have a Cassie show up, I'm still gonna say that she's top tier because didn't we have a Cassie at Final Combat? Like she's still getting results in offline, and Cassie hasn't really been changed from Final Combat to the Aftermath patch. Like she's very much the same character. So I'm going to keep her in top tier, right? And then, so the last person in top tier, this is like the dark horse pick, is Raiden. So the only reason why I put Raiden here, and that is with an asterisk, is because he has not performed at offline. You look at him on paper, he's disgusting. He's stupid, right? Like, you basically, back 1-2 is only theoretically punishable, but no one is going to punish it. No one ever tries to punish it. Trying to punish it is a hard read, because if you try to punish it and you guessed wrong, like he puts you in a 3-way guessing game off of back 1-2. Back 1-2 is, mind you, an 11 frame mid, so it's one of the faster mids in the game that you can pressure with, and interrupt mashing and stop stuff, and has a lot of range. So like he can throw that out from further out than most people can throw out their mids. And it puts you in a three-way guessing game where Raiden picks one option that covers two things, right? So like if he staggers, you have a counter for stagger, it's punish it, right? Because the string is -8. So it's jab punishable for full combo. You have one option that beats one thing. But Raiden can finish it with the grab, or he can finish it with a special move, and that blows up your one option, and that's two options he has to do that, right? The only way to stop the grab is to neutral duck. But if you neutral duck, he could stagger, or he could go for a special move cancel, in which case your one option is still beat by two of his, right? Or you can block, which is blown up by the grab, or it's blown up by the stagger. If he just decides not to grab or do the move or do a special move and commit to anything unsafe, he could just stagger you, and you have to make the hard read to press a button. And the second you try to press a button, he can pick one of three options to blow that up, and you have nothing. So anytime he gets that button on screen, you're put in a three-way guess that favors him 2-1 in favor of Raiden, on top of everything else Raiden has. But if you look at the characters that are on this list, almost all of them have a good mid. And so Raiden having access to an 11-frame mid that leads to a three-way guessing game really puts him in contention with the rest of these characters. The only ones that don't have a good mid are what? Johnny and Cetrion? And Cetrion has a 10-frame mid, so it's not like she doesn't have one. It just doesn't really lead to much, but she can't really stagger it all that well, right? But like she does have access to one. It's just Johnny that has shit mids, but Johnny has down one Rising Star in order to like contest you mashing, which is what you need a strong mid for. You need a fast mid to stop mashing. Johnny can contest mashing with a special cancel and keep it safe, so he doesn't really need a mid. He kind of has like an exception to the rule of having a mid. So like, you know, but everybody else in the top tier has at least a 10-frame or 11-frame mid. And so Raiden having an 11-frame mid that can lead to obnoxious gimmicks that you have to respect, and he can just stagger and spam it as much as he wants, and you're constantly going to be second-guessing whether or not to press a button after back 1-2. Like, that's really, really strong, and Raidens are starting to really, like, come up in the world. People are starting to look at the character and be like, there's more to it. The only thing that really keeps him outside of like the top 5 or whatever is just we've never seen this version of Raiden in offline play. Like the last tournament was before the Aftermath patch, and Raiden was not good. And then Aftermath buffed Raiden, and we haven't had any offlines. So like he doesn't have that. So that's why I don't want to put him higher up in the top tiers. But I don't want to put him in mid-tier because his tools on paper are way too strong, and he has ways of dealing. Like, he doesn't really have bad matchups. Who is, like, Raiden's bad matchup? Any rushdown character, he's rushing them down, too. And he can zone. His rushdown variation has 2 projectiles and a teleport. So it's like if Raiden is fighting a straight-up rushdown character like Cabal or Kung Lao or Liu Kang, he can zone and then teleport away to safety. This teleport's not really that good, but it's still an option. He still has it, and he has 2 projectiles in his rushdown variation. Again, if somebody's going to zone, he can just wait until projectile. He can slowly walk in. As soon as they throw a projectile from full screen, he teleports in, and he goes right into his 11-frame mid. Like, on paper, this character is really, really stupid. He just hasn't had the results. So that's, like, my top tier is, like, they are characters that you can pick, and if you're good, you'll go far in the bracket just based on your character alone. Like, you're not going to get eliminated from the tournament because of bad matchups all that often. I mean, it could happen, but you have the highest likelihood of success of getting favorable matchups in a bracket. With those, what is that, top 5, 6, 7, 8, top 8, right? That's the top tier. I could make it a top 10, but I feel like after Raiden, it gets a lot more inconsistent, and like every other character after Raiden has had spotty tournament results, offline and online, and it's been like character specialists, like, you know, like you have Hey George, who did well with Frost, but like he's the only one. No one else has done well with Frost. So is that a say on Frost being good, or of Hey George being really, really good and just being a Frost fan? Like, I mean, I guess there were two Frosts that placed high, but like it's just those two guys. People haven't put in work with him, you know. But the characters here, lots of people have put in work, and lots of people have gotten results, with the exception of Raiden. Remains to be seen on Raiden. He's got an asterisk next to his name. So next I'm going to discuss bottom tier. I'm going to show you guys who that is. And that's it. That's the bottom tier. Shao Kahn and Scarlet. The reason why Shao Kahn and Scarlet are bottom tier is because one fundamental mechanic, which is flawless block, really, really hurts them. A lot of what they do is trying to set play you with plus frames. So ignoring Shao Kahn's 4-3-4 being like basically the easiest flawless block in the game, ignoring that, a lot of Shao Kahn's strategy is setting up plus frames to pressure you. So like he does his forward 4, or what is it, 4-4, or forward 2-4, like all of his overheads that lead to plus frames. And then he uses that to set up the fact that he doesn't really have a reliable mid, or a safe reliable mid, because 4-3-4 or 4-3 in general is kind of a liability. But like so Shao Kahn's entire strategy is using plus frames to set up his offense. But because of flawless block and the fact that a lot of people are getting better at flawless blocking, flawless block basically negates plus frames. Like you do your plus frame move, if you push a button, you're getting launched off of a flawless block. If somebody can do a flawless block and they have the meter to do it, then that means every time you use your plus frames, you're running the risk of getting launched pressing a button afterwards. And it's the same thing with Scarlet. Not even looking at Scarlet's flawless block gaps, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, well, she has too many gaps. You know, you can flawless block out of all of her strings. But the thing is, Scarlet kind of takes advantage of that. She actually manipulates that, especially in Variation 2, because all of her special moves that she can cancel out of have different timings. So if she does a move, like say she does forward 4-3, you know that there's a flawless block gap between 4 and 3, so you start fishing for the flawless block, and then she does tongue, and it hits you because you have to let go of block to do a flawless block and then time it right. But because you let go of flawless block, you get hit with the mid, and the timing is different. So, you know, you can flawless block it, but now you have to choose the timing. So she has ways of negating the flawless block gaps. She can kind of fight that. She can do stuff. And a lot of her special moves are relatively safe. They're like -5. So she can do stuff to alter the timing to fight flawless block. Flawless block is not really the problem that Scarlet has. The problem with Scarlet is she has bad mids. Her best mid is forward 4. It's 12 frames. It's kind of slow. You can't really use it to stop mashing. So she's got to be on point with her jailing, which online is not very consistent at all. But she has to rely on a jail to get anything going. So one of the things that Scarlet is designed to do is to set play you. So she doesn't worry about the jail. She sets up, you know, getting plus frames, and then she doesn't have to worry about how slow her mid is. But again, like I said, flawless block just deletes plus frames. So when Scarlet goes for standing 4-4, right, to set up her plus frames to be able to get forward 4 out and it not get interrupted by, like, you know, low pokes, right? So you have to respect it. Well, like I did this yesterday on stream. I just flawless block. It's like, oh, she did standing 4-4. I know forward 4 is coming out, so I'm just going to flawless block it. And then now, after standing 4-4, her best move as a follow-up is like negated. Everything else is easy to react to. If she decides to like dash in or jump in, I can react to those from there. And anything else that she does isn't going to frame trap me. right? Because either the spacing isn't the same or the move isn't fast enough to frame trap me. So like having the threat of flawless block removes one of her key tools, and this is a mechanic that's universal to everybody. Like Scarlet and Shao Kahn, they don't have bad matchups. They have bad mechanics. They will struggle against anyone who can flawless block. It's not like, oh yeah, Scarlet, she does bad against Shang and she does bad against Fujin. And no, like she does bad against anyone that can flawless block. Same thing with Shao Kahn. They are weak to a mechanic. And if you're going to a tournament, you have to assume that most of the people at that tournament have practiced flawless block. So I put these people at bottom tier because you'd be crazy to go to a tournament with these characters knowing that most of the people you will fight can flawless block. And if they can flawless block, that means like half of your moveset is irrelevant. Like all you have to contest that is dashing, like you do something that's plus and then dash in and grab. But now you're eating pokes and you're getting jailed and you're eating down ones on people stopping you from dashing into grab, which puts you in the same place. Like Shao Kahn would be good if he had forward 3 as like a better string to be able to stop mashing, but it like forward 3 is kind of it's a liability, right? Because if you commit to it, you run the risk of getting flawless blocked. If you stagger it, it's not really a good stagger. Like it's very easy to tell when he does forward 3 and then stops, and it's very easy to react to the second hit. So like against someone that knows how to flawless block, yeah, people think, oh yeah, he can 50-50 you 4-3-4, and then it's grab or shoulder charge, and it's like, no, it's not, because like if you can flawless block, he can't cancel into either of those. So as soon as someone is good at flawless blocking, Shao Kahn is deleted from the game. And that's why I put them at bottom tier. So this is the controversial part, right? This is where everything gets nutty, and that is mid tier. And as you can probably guess, we have a lot of characters down here, and we only have one tier left. How's things going to shape up? It's pretty much how you're going to expect. All of these characters are mid tier, except for Kronika, who I can't pick. You cannot play Kronika. She is not in the game. But everybody else, this is just going to take me a long-ass time to put them in the tier list. Everyone else, I'm putting at mid-tier, even the Aftermath characters. So, like, everybody's going to say that this is my hot take, and you guys are going to post this on Twitter, and you're all going to shit on me. First of all, mid-tier, the order doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I have Baraka at the top of mid-tier. I have RoboCop at the bottom of mid-tier. It doesn't fucking matter. There's no order. They're all in mid-tier together. And the reason for that, having one mid-tier, because a lot of people have, like, 2 mid-tiers or 3 mid-tiers. It's irrelevant. It's pointless. Why? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares that Nightwolf is a little bit better than Shang Tsung, right? Like, the bottom tier characters are countered by a mechanic. That's why they're bottom tier. Picking them is a liability because the game mechanics shit on them. The top tier characters are proven to get results. Everybody else in here has not been proven to get results offline. Sure, somebody has made a win here and there. People have gotten top 3s. They've gotten wins. They've won the whole bracket. But it's not consistent. There aren't several people. Like, people are saying Kung Lao, should be top tier. And I'm like, well, like, 2 guys have done well with Kung Lao, and one of them dropped him recently and isn't really going to play him anymore. And, like, they aren't winning consistently. And on paper, Kung Lao is pretty bad. Like, theoretically, he's bad. Everything is, like, punishable. Everything is interruptible. All of his gimmicks are gimmicks. Like, as long as you have the reaction time, or even with the down 1 orbital hat getting interrupted, you don't even have to have good reaction. You just got to mash. And then that's negated by, like, most of the roster. Everybody in mid-tier has more bad matchups than the characters at top tier. And that's really all it comes down to. It's like, it doesn't matter how many bad matchups they have. You will fight more bad matchups as Scorpion than you will as Jackie. Now, maybe Scorpion has more bad matchups than Jade. Doesn't fucking matter. If you're going to a tournament and your goal is to win money, I want to win this tournament. What will increase my likelihood of doing that? Picking these 8 characters on the top. That is going to increase my likelihood of winning. picking these characters under that is not going to increase my likelihood of winning. I have an average to good shot instead of a great shot. You could win. You could win a tournament with Sub-Zero. You could win a tournament with Shao Kahn. But as Sub-Zero, I'm going to struggle with a bunch of characters in the mid-tier, and I'm probably going to struggle with a bunch of characters at the top tier. So logically, if I were playing at the most... Thank you for the follow, Jim Fandango. But logically, if I were trying to play the most optimally at the highest level, right? I'm playing the best in the world at the best I possibly can play, mitigating any outside factors that could keep me from losing, right? I'm mitigating not being tired by resting. I am mitigating not being dehydrated by drinking. I am mitigating bad matchups by picking the characters who have the fewest. And I'm going by tried and true results that historically this has played out. Okay, I'm not breaking new ground, right? Because there's risk involved. And a lot of tournament success is managing and mitigating risk, right? That's why I tell you guys don't play so unsafe. Don't unga bunga shit, right? Because that unga bunga, that die roll, that fucking Aaron Black back two slide could be the difference between winning and going on to grand finals and losing in loser's bracket and being sent home and having spent $100 or whatever traveling to a tournament for nothing. That one bad read could cost you the whole tournament, right? You look at the characters at the top tier, they're not reliant on making those kind of reads. Like, yeah, Joker has some unsafe mix-ups. You don't have to do them. You could win with Joker never doing an unga bunga fucking cane, overhead cane. You could sit there and never do it and fucking win. But that tool is there if you want it to. Whereas like with Aaron Black, like he kind of needs the mix, you know, like Sub-Zero, he kind of needs that mix. And all of his options off of that mix are relatively unsafe. So it's kind of a liability. Plus, he has bad matchups, more bad matchups. Shang Tsung has more bad matchups than Cetrion. If you wanted to play a zoner and you wanted to go all the way to the top of a bracket and win a tournament, you can pick Shang Tsung and you can face some bad matchups. Or you can pick Cetrion, who plays the similar play style, just a little bit different, and has less bad matchups. Logically, optimally, you are playing specifically to win a tournament, to win money. Which option is going to make sense? And then you add on the fact that that historical results are playing into it. So just looking at their tool sets, Cetrion seems like a better character. But then you look at actual results. More people have placed high with Cetrion than they have with Shang Tsung. So logically, if you're playing to win, you're just looking at top tier, right? So this is why the tier list, you know, my tier list is different from everybody else's, because my tier list is when you create something to solve a problem, right? And the problem is, what character do I pick, right? That's it. People are like, what's a good character to pick? Well, if your goal is to win a tournament, right? Win the world championships. This is my goal. I want to win the world championships. What character do I pick? Top tier. What character do I avoid at all costs? Say I don't want to pick top tier, all right? I don't want to be a tier whore, but I don't want to pick the worst character in the game and just get deleted by a mechanic, okay? That's going to be the bottom tier. Okay, so everybody else, they're not deleted by an actual game mechanic that is universal to everyone else, but they're not tried and true, proven commodities. There's dispute. There's bad matchups. There are issues. You won't be easy, but you can do it. That's going to be your mid-tier. And that solves that problem of who do I pick. Instead of breaking it down into this is C tier and this is D tier and this is S minus and blah, blah, blah. Like all of that is irrelevant and redundant, because the whole point of a tier list is to solve the question of which character do I pick if I want the best character, if I want to avoid the worst character, or to heaven forbid, I'm crazy and I want to play the worst character and see how far I can go with the worst character. Then my tier list with 3 tiers solves that question. It solves that problem. These are the best. Avoid these guys. Everything else, your mileage may vary. You assume the risk of playing all of these characters. But it can be done. It's been done before, just not that often. But if you worried about it being done before and being done often, you would have picked the top tier. So that's why I only have three tiers, and that is my MK tier list